So our next speaker is another person willing to take a stand, a guy who I'm guessing isn't really scared of very much, and this is Senator Jesse Green. Senator Green lives in Senate District 24, where he's a fifth-generation farmer. He farms beans, oats, hay, and bucking horses. That's impressive. That's how I know I got a guy who's not scared of anything, right? He was elected as the youngest chairman in Dayton rodeo history. Senator Green is a Christian conservative, and he's taught Bible classes to middle school students. He received the Greater Fort Dodge Growth Alliance Top 10 Under 40 Young Professionals. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce you to Senator Jesse Green.
Well, first off, I want to thank Mark Meckler, Rick Santorum, Steve Deace, Representative John Wills, Karen Schuster, Catherine Zemanek, Bill Gustav, and many others who have put so much time and energy into this valiant effort here today. But most of all, I want to thank you. You know, the Article 5 Convention of the States is a paramount tool that our founders gave us to maintain checks and balances in Washington. It is great because really, it's not a tool, it's a movement that is driven purely by the people in the states when the federal government has become too irresponsible and cannot live within its means. Finance radio personality and author Dave Ramsey says that the first thing someone needs to do if they are in financial trouble is to feel their money once again. Do you know why casinos give you poker chips instead of paying everything in cash? It's because they slowly want to separate the feelings you have to your money. It is a lot easier to spend a chip than it is to spend cash. That is why financial coaches will often encourage those in financial trouble to cut up their credit cards and to develop new habits in order to regain the value of what their dollar should be. At the players' table in Washington, they forego even the use of poker chips to spend your tax dollars with. With the stroke of a few pens and a couple backdoor deals and handshakes, they can spend trillions. Washington has lost the feeling of a value of a dollar for the American public. And this is not just any dollar, this is your hard-earned dollar. In 1984, the year I was born, the national debt was $1.5 trillion, which is 38% of the national GDP. 8 years later, we can recall the famous presidential election where Ross Perot made his case that the national debt was our nation's #1 threat. He struck a chord with so many voters and won, as a result, the most votes by an independent in recent history. In 2015, our national debt hit $18 trillion. That's the first time that our debt reached 100% of our GDP since World War II. We responded, the nation responded, by electing Donald Trump in one of the largest Republican trifectas in recent history. When we sent all of those Republicans to Washington, I didn't consider the Convention of States movement as a necessity. I, along with many of you here today, figured the Republicans that we sent to Washington would honor their word to us and they would get their fiscal house in order. Regrettably, that trust remains unfulfilled. Like an average politician, they overpromised and they underdelivered. In 4 short years, the so-called fiscal conservatives that we sent to Washington added another $9 trillion of debt. Neighbors and friends, we did our job. We sent to Washington those Republicans that made promises to us, but they failed us. This proves to me that really our war is not between Republicans and Democrats, but rather a war against Main Street and the politically connected in Washington. That is why that the Convention of States is a bipartisan effort. Thankfully, everyone that is here today has not given up. Days like today give me so much hope. I have always maintained that since Ross Perot gave his warnings in 1992 that the national debt was the #1 threat facing our country today. The day that I leave this building from public service, I will not look back with regret and say that I didn't do something about this threat. This effort to call a convention of the states is the strongest message we can send to Washington. It is also one of the last options we have to limit the power of Washington on the American people. I am thankful for the opportunity to be a part of this moment and this effort. Brothers and sisters, in closing, there is nothing in life that happens by accident. Today is a divine appointment that God has established for us to gather, to encourage one another, and to send a message to Washington that here in Iowa, we believe it is time to cut up the credit card. We need to remind Washington who is in charge, and that is us. We must have a balanced budget amendment. We must have it now. So I call upon my colleagues here to be unified in allowing Iowa to be the 17th state to call for a convention of the states and to make this a reality. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and God bless you.
I'm here live in Philadelphia at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. When you hear the phrase lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, these are the folks we should think of, those who anonymously gave their lives. Well, today you have a chance to volunteer. You need to volunteer for conventionofstates.com, the movement that's going to save the country. These folks are willing to step up and give everything. We need you to give just a little bit. Go to conventionofstates.com and volunteer today.